7th. Thank you. February 7th, 2019 session of the Portland City Council. That's take two. Take two. Yeah, it's been a long week. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Carla, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here.
Daly.
Here.
Here. Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Portland City Council. City Council. We on?
Yeah, there you go.
Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and needs to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office or communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you're in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless entering or exiting. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disruptive conduct such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given to the person being disrupted, resulting in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespassing. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Thank you very much. Carla, we only have one item today, item 113. Could you please read it?
The City of Portland condemns white supremacist and alt-right hate groups.
Colleagues, I'm going to withhold my remarks till the end, but I don't know if anybody would like to make opening remarks. Commissioner Fish.
Mayor, I'd like to begin by thanking my colleagues, each of you, your respective staff, and community advocates for working collaboratively to draft this resolution. And
Hey Carla, when I came in, there wasn't a sign up, so I'd like to sign up to speak.
A strong, unified voice against hate, bigotry, and white supremacy. Now, we know that we can't change the future if we don't acknowledge our history. Our city and our state have a long legacy of racism that we are still dealing with today. Today's action, however, is intended to make our values loud and clear. We thrive from our diversity. We believe in building bridges rooted in respect and inclusiveness. We are a proud sanctuary city. We, City Council, and the City of Portland are united in rejecting white supremacy and white nationalism, and we are committed to creating a future that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. So the order of events today is we're going to call up staff to give us some remarks and the run of show. So Nicole Grant, she is my senior policy advisor. You want to come on up and start us off? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Grant, Senior Policy Advisor to Mayor Wheeler. And I'm here to introduce today's resolution condemning white supremacy. This resolution is the culmination of several weeks of work beginning late last year involving contributions from each of your offices. I'd like to thank Senna Lawrence, Wendy Johannes, Cynthia Castro, and Derek Bradley for their collaborative efforts in bringing this resolution before you. In working on this, we contended with the question of this resolution and the symbolism in leading this. Mayor, you and I had this conversation as well. What good are words when people of color are assaulted on the street without provocation? when we are subjected to racial epithets at a high school basketball game, when our identities and citizenship statuses are dissected, mocked, and undermined for political ends, and when we continue to face discrimination in nearly every facet of American life. This resolution is not about white people. It is about all people, with a dedicated focus on those who are targeted as a result of their skin color. It is about encouraging all Portlanders to live up to our highest aspirations, not only in word, but also in deed. Yes, this resolution is a clear denunciation of white supremacists and alt-right hate groups, which continue to treat Portland as their playground and levy threats against our mayor and fellow community members. However, this goes beyond public safety and speaks to a need for a cultural shift in this city. White supremacy isn't solely embodied in hate groups. It is woven into the fabric of Portland, Oregon, past and present. It is not an abstraction. It feeds on itself and affects us all daily. While sitting down for lunch with my family here in Portland a couple of years ago, an older white gentleman a few feet away had been glaring at me. I found it odd and tried not to give it too much thought. My husband, who was white, stepped away, and my stepson and I took that as an opportunity to give each other butterfly kisses while we waited for my husband to return. And I remember turning in the man's general direction and seeing disgust on his face. Then he scoffed. He appeared to be so offended by the sight of us that he turned away, but then was compelled to look again, actively feeding his anger. He would turn away and then look, turn away and then look. And I contemplated leaving the restaurant once my husband returned, but the man beat me to the punch. He left abruptly, shaking his head and muttering before the server could even bring him his glass of water. This is Portland, and it happens every day. And I'm not alone in this. And there are so many more stories out there that reflect experiences similar to mine. As a woman of color, specifically as a Black woman, I'm constantly aware of my physicality in predominantly white spaces. That is more so the case for me here in Portland than anywhere else I've lived. I look over my shoulder more than I ever have in my life. There's an emotional burden that comes with fighting for recognition and inclusion in spaces that were not envisioned to empower or protect bodies like mine. And it is frightening how ordinary this is for so many of us. The invisible baggage that we carry every day is demoralizing and exhausting. We know that the fatigue many of us feel goes beyond our individual experiences and interactions and is exacerbated by the predictable drumbeat of lower graduation rates, lower wages, higher incarceration rates, rising suicide rates, higher poverty rates, higher mortality rates, and the fundamental knowledge that there is an impossible number of stories waiting to be told and uplifted. All of this is a function of white supremacy, a function of the historical impact of white supremacy and the policies implemented by civic institutions that ostensibly have been meant to serve all people, but predictably only manage to serve some. This resolution puts a marker down for the city of Portland. This is important because it has not been done before with the collective voices of our city council. Do not underestimate the impact of your words in speaking out against white supremacy when doing so appears to be the exception. It matters to have these words represented by the privilege and power of that dais. It is one step in our efforts to counter white supremacy with the intent of taking many more in order to create more space for people of color in this city to thrive and live authentically. I'd like to now move on to the run of show for this afternoon. We have two panels of invited guests. The first panel features Eric Ward and Amy Hirschfeld-Koppel from the Western State Center and Bhavin Singh from the Oregon Justice Resource Center. The second panel features Alan Lazo from Portland United Against Hate and the Fair Housing Council, Maria Garcia from the New Portlanders Policy Commission and Revolucion Coffee House, and Waji Saeed from the Muslim Educational Trust. After the panels conclude, public testimony will be accepted and then followed by your closing remarks. I'd like to now invite Eric Ward, Amy Hirschfeld-Koppel, and Bhavin Singh to the table to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Before you leave, Nicole, I just want to thank you so much. I know how hard it is to put those personal stories out in the public airwaves. And just know that you are certainly not alone in having those experiences in Portland, Oregon. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate you being willing to share your own story. Thank you.
That.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. The microphones move around about 6 inches away is the right distance, we think. And if you just state your names again for the record, that'd be helpful.
Thank you. We have a sequence here, so
Okay.
I'm honored to go first. Mayor Wheeler, City Commissioners, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us to speak to this historic resolution. My name is Amy Hirschfeld-Koppel, and I'm the Deputy Director of Programs and Strategic Initiatives at Western State Center. I grew up in Idaho, a state that has a unique history of successfully countering Aryan Nations activity. I've been active in human rights organizing and advocacy for more than 20 years, including several years as the Executive Director of the Idaho Human Rights Education Center, and most recently as Co-Executive Director of Basic Rights Oregon. I moved to Portland from Boise in 2011, drawn to a community and state that would provide more affirmation and security to start my family. Idaho still lacks non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ folks. And I also moved here because I wanted to be in closer proximity to Western State Center, a group that I deeply respect and served on the board of for 11 years before joining the staff team last year. Western State Center is a 30-year-old civil rights and social justice organization based here in Portland, but serving grassroots justice leaders and organizations in the Pacific Northwest and Mountain States. Part of Western State Center's work is to monitor white nationalist and other racist and sexist extremist movements, and to work with community leaders to find effective solutions to defend our democracy from the threat that these social movements pose to vulnerable communities and to our democracy itself. We believe that this resolution today is the right first step. The resolution condemns white supremacist, alt-right, and white nationalist hate groups. And I want to provide some additional context about these groups and why they present an urgent threat to our city's residents and democratic institutions. White supremacy is a system of subjugation of people of color to preserve privilege and power for white people. And it's based on 3 core pillars. First, slavery and the exploitation of labor, particularly anti-blackness. Second, the genocide of indigenous peoples and exploitation of their resources. And finally, the control of sexuality in women. It's baked into U.S. history and culture, dating back to our nation's founding with the genocide and forced removal of Native Americans and the shameful institution of slavery, which helped build the U.S. economy into a global powerhouse. Here in Oregon, our own history of Black and Chinese exclusion laws have profoundly shaped our state's demographics and attracted those who sought to create a white homeland in our region. White supremacy is a system that operates within our institutions and endures in everyday life in the United States. And it creates inequities that provide a breeding ground for white nationalism. This resolution cites several very relevant examples of how institutionalized white supremacy has shaped Portland's policies and practices today. They include policing and sentencing disparities in our criminal justice system, displacement of communities of color, and disparate access to public services. Nationally, white supremacist policies, including voter suppression laws, anti-immigrant family separation policies, and the protection of Confederate monuments shape our political landscape, creating a climate where white nationalism can flourish. By contrast, white nationalism is a bigoted social movement that seeks to create a white-only ethno-state. Its supporters seek to build political power to achieve that ideological vision by implementing extreme racist, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, homophobic, and transphobic policies. White nationalists and aligned alt-right groups often have deeply anti-government ideologies, making them a threat not just to vulnerable